to whom can you turn? When ain't nobody higher to turn to than God. Where can you go to get some counseling when the wonderful counselor is the one you need counseling for? I mean, who can you turn to when your problem is with God? With whom can you file your grievance? What kind of court of jurisprudence can you walk into? When you're trying to summons the great judge and sovereign of heaven and earth. My brothers and sisters, some of us won't even admit it this morning. But our actions show. Our daily walk tells the truth about us. Even this morning, some of us are sitting here with a problem with God. We don't perceive the problem that we have as being a problem with God. But let me let you in on a little bit of reality. Because whenever you have a problem with the way God is handling things, then you have a problem with God. God is of such a character that the essence of who he is displayed in his works. For instance, when we look at his work of creation, you can see that God is a God above gods. Because no other God can call into existence something that previously didn't exist by starting with nothing. Amen. God is the sovereign creator, and he operates and works according to his own will. And God's nature and his character bears witness to the acts that he performs. And so whenever you got a problem with the way God is performing in nature, whenever you have a problem with the way God is performing in your life, you have a problem with God. And so we need to understand this morning, how is it that one can come to have a problem with the almighty sovereign and ruler of this world in which we live? How does one get to the point where they have a problem with God? We're used to folk having a problem with their fellow man. We're used to folk having a problem with their spouse. We're used to folk having a problem with church members. But we're not accustomed to even admitting the reality that some of us have a problem with God. How is it, preacher, that one can get to the point like Habakkuk did, where God is their problem? My brothers and sisters, for Habakkuk, it started soon after God had destroyed the Assyrians for oppressing his people, Judah. The prophet Nahum had prophesied in 640 BC in chapter 1 and verse 8 of his prophecy that God will with an overrunning flood make an utter end of this place. This was referring to Nineveh, the capital of Assyria. The Assyrians were some very cruel and cold-hearted people. They were ruthless in their dealings with human beings. They cared nothing for human life and sought to make other people's lives miserable every chance they got. Well, Assyria was one of Judah's most ardent oppressors. And so God had prophesied that if Nineveh didn't change her ways, he was going to do away with her. About 150 years earlier, God had sent the prophet Jonah to the city of Nineveh and told him to preach unto the Ninevites, where Jonah understood how crooked and how wicked these folk were. And Jonah decided these folk are so bad off. They don't deserve to hear God's word. And so after God allowed him to spend some time in the whale's pit, preached to Nineveh. After the preaching to Nineveh, everybody repented, from the king in the palace to the prisoner in the dungeon. But 150 years later, Nineveh is back to her old ways. And so about 612 BC, God sends the Medes and the Babylonians to attack Nineveh and to completely destroy and annihilate the Assyrians. When Judah, God's people, discovers her number one enemy is out of the way, she starts to act up herself. I mean, how soon do we forget what God has delivered us from? As long as the Assyrians were oppressing Judah, she didn't have time to mistreat nobody. But once God had lifted her burden, once God had removed her enemy, she started acting just like her enemy. Now, she was doing a little bit worse than her enemy, because she didn't start oppressing folk of other nations, but she started oppressing her own people. To make matters worse, they put the wicked in positions of control, and the wicked were stirring up strife and contention on every hand. People who were in positions of judicial power were rendering justice that was perverted. In other words, if you had some money, you could get your way in court. If you didn't have any money, oh, woe is you. They were perverting judgment, and a righteous man didn't stand a chance in the land. They had the wrong people in authority, and the wicked were doing wrong and getting away with it. They had reverted back to the time of the book of Judges, where the Bible informs us in those days there was no king in Israel. Every man was doing that which was right in his own eyes. Judah was oppressing her own people. Her own brothers and sisters were being mistreated at her hand. And they were not even acting like people who knew God nor appreciated what God had done for them just a few years ago. Well, Habakkuk is watching all this going on. And he's wondering, why won't God do something about it? How is it that once God lifts a burden, he allows folk to then become a burden to other people? How is it that God removes oppression from one person's life and then allows an individual who has been relieved of their oppression to turn around and oppress somebody else? Habakkuk is watching. He knows that God is watching, and he's wondering, why won't God do something about it? I mean, all of us at one point or another in our lives has wondered, why is God allowing the wicked to prosper? How is it that God can sit back and watch the wrong that they're doing to me and not stop them from the wrong that they're doing to me? How is it that God could watch over me in the midst of my agony and my pain and not render unto me the relief that I am crying for? This was the problem that Habakkuk had with God. God was watching Judah oppress their brothers and their sisters in Judah. And Habakkuk was ready for God to step in and to straighten this thing out. Why does God allow the righteous to suffer by the hands of the wicked? You know, Habakkuk was not the only individual who had a problem with the righteous, with the wicked rather, oppressing the righteous. Look with me at Psalms 94. And beginning at verse number 1, we see that the psalmist also had a similar problem with God. He says, O Lord God, to whom vengeance belongeth, O God,